forgot to turn the mic on. Again, that's twice today. Oh, take two. God damn it, I never do 2 takes. Fuck. That's terrible. Failure. I should have just walked over, turned it on, and then redid it, and then just put the entire clip up. Anyway. Hey guys, welcome back to Endeavor Defensive Fitness. Had a little issue with the mic, so we're gonna redo an entire video that we just filmed 2 seconds ago. So tonight we were working on elbows, and we were working on elbows from different angles, from the front, side, back, you know, how to tie those things together. But more importantly, what this video is about is utilizing high gear helmets to actually learn kind of where to place and put a lot of elbows. So traditionally, a lot of systems, especially Krav Maga systems, we have a tendency where the first elbow we show people in elbows in general kind of come from this idea that my hands are up and I'm just hitting pads, right? So we have a tendency to be off of the pad, my hands are up, I turn my hips, and I'm driving, you know, big heavy elbows. Whether it's from the side, where I'm hitting my elbows here, or whether it's from behind. Usually, if we spend the majority of the time just hitting the pad, we lose some of the what if they're covering, defending, trying to wrestle with me and fight me. So one of the things that we'll do when we have people, and don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with big, heavy, powerful elbows and learning that on pads. There's nothing wrong with that at all. We just want to be able to kind of add another layer to it. So what I'll have people do is actually learn to throw their elbows with their hands on the pad. So from this position, now with my hands interacting with whatever that pad or that person is, I learn to turn and drive my elbows a lot shorter and quicker from these positions to be able to turn over. And again, that's not, you know, monumental. I didn't invent that. But we're getting people to do that right out of the gate. And because we want to understand that once we take the pad away, I have a human being, right? And the human being is going to be covering his head. He might be wrestling and trying to fight with me and things like that. So we like to utilize high gear suits. If you don't know much about high gear, if you remember the old Red Man suits from back in the day, they were kind of big and clunky, like the big cage on your head. The high gear suit put together by Tony Blauer, Spear System guys, it allows you to move. Yeah? It allows you to be a lot more mobile. It gives good protection, but it's also a lot slimmer, so it allows you to move. In our level 1 classes especially, instead of suiting everybody up, we have a bunch of the high gear helmets. So this actually allows us to learn and teach our students to strike to the helmet and actually utilize it. Now, we want to be able to utilize these safely, right? So you got to watch. Just because he has a helmet on and protective gear on doesn't mean I can just tee off on him. There's still movement of the neck and whiplash, things like that. And I still want him to be relatively comfortable training, especially on a level 1 setting. So when we get into this, the first thing we generally have people do is kind of a couple of test strikes, right? So I go super, super light and easy. I make a strike. He's okay with it. I hit a little bit harder. He's okay with it. I hit a little bit harder, and he's like, that's about it, right? That allows me to actually get an idea of, okay, this is where I can be at with this. He's still comfortable, and that's where I can move at. In level 1, we keep things really light. It's more for scenario and learning basis, but it allows him to kind of move through and actually be able to hit. Now, if Mike's covering his head to defend, I have a different situation. If Mike's trying to grab onto my arms or onto my head and he's wrestling with me, I don't have that big step in, rearing, bursting elbow, right? I have to be able to, from these positions, find ways to work and swim through or swim over and feed, and now I'm kind of wrestling and using my hands to do it. So we're going to do a couple of little drills with this idea in mind, and again, utilizing the high gear helmets. So the first thing he's going to do, the first iteration, we generally just have him go into high covers. High covers, he just has his arms up on top of his head. And now this allows me to realize that if I'm just blasting into the forearms, it might not be as effective. Sure, you can make the argument that I'm breaking wrists, breaking hands, and I'm at least rattling a little bit. But the reality of it is, if I want to end this fight soon and fast, and I feel the need to actually elbow somebody, I want to be hitting the things that are going to actually stop this fight soon. So this is going to kind of change the angle, and I'm going to turn him just a little bit. It's going to change the angle because now, instead of just throwing these straight across the bow, now maybe I'm hitting, you know, up to the front. Maybe I'm utilizing hand fighting. So I'm going to come across with this one, pull the arm out of the way as I feed the other one up over top from that position. Whatever it is, it forces you to actually find and work through the targets while the guy is being an obstruction. Okay, so it's just a little more realistic, little scenario basis. Then what we'll do is we'll build on that. And now he's allowed to use one arm just to try to grab onto my hands and move and block out away from his face. So one will always be tucked in and one can now move out. And now from this, again, I've got to learn when to kind of feed arms through and go into this position and where can I kind of fight those hands as they go to move from there. And then we can build it to another stage where now he's allowed to defend if he wants to, he's allowed to defend off of his body if he wants to, and he's also allowed to do just a little kind of basic stand-up wrestling or grappling. So he's allowed to grab onto my head, he's allowed to control my arms. So now as we go through this iteration, for me to find these elbows, I've got to now be actually fighting with somebody who doesn't want to be hit, right? And so it just makes things a little more realistic. So essentially where we're going with this is, yes, the big tee-off elbows and learning to generate as much force as possible in pad work, that stuff is all phenomenal tools, but eventually we want to work people towards, you know, a real sense of realism. If somebody grabs onto me or just doesn't want to get hit and their arms are in the way, how do I start working around that, right? And we can implement these same drills with just basic striking, you know, punches, palms, hammer fists. If he's got the chest plate on or the rest of the gear, we can start utilizing in kicks and knees and things like that. But it allows you to be very interactive. So if you've never played around with high gear, I highly suggest it. If you do have access to it, there's a lot of great drills. And a lot of people tend to be a little nervous utilizing these with newer students. Just take it very slow, very light, but it can be just an absolute vital asset to getting these people to understand really how a fight would actually play out. So just something to think about, a little tool if you haven't been using it, you guys can jump in and play around with, and we'll see you guys next time.